Welcome to the Haven Collective. I'm J.R. Foresteros, and this is The Beacon Bit. One of my favorite kinds of scary movies is the one where it turns out that the call is coming from inside the house, right? That was in the original Black Christmas from 1974. And I think one of the films that did this the best was The Grudge, where the young woman, she's played by Sarah Michelle Gellar in the American remake, is often encounters the ghost in surprising places. She encounters him outside. She encounters the ghost outside when she's like riding a city bus surrounded by people. One of the worst is when she hides under her covers, which everyone knows is scientifically the safest place to hide from a ghost, and yet the ghost appears under her covers. And I find those stories so fascinating because they warn that often the biggest danger from a monster lurks in the places where we feel the safest, where we feel the most at home. And there's some obvious reasons that makes us feel spooky and scary, but I think on a metaphorical level, maybe it's telling a deeper truth that we need to hear. Throughout this entire series, we've been looking at the process of making monsters in our culture. How again and again and again, people, particularly vulnerable people, are scapegoated, are blamed for problems that the larger culture or the dominant culture has. That what we like to do is externalize our anxieties about ourselves and put them onto someone else and then demonize them and exorcise them so that we can feel better without actually having to be better. When I first started looking at monsters through this lens, it created a lot of shame and guilt for me, a lot of fear of judgment, because after all, what it says about me is that I'm not doing the difficult work of spiritual formation, right? Instead, I'm sublimating my anxieties and putting them onto other people so that I don't have to face my sins. I think that's why I find so much comfort in Jesus' words in John chapter 3 that we looked at this week. They begin with the famous John 3:16 that we see on signs at ballparks, and probably a lot of us had to memorize in VBS as kids and stuff like that. But what I love about this bit is Jesus' insistence that he doesn't come to condemn us or to judge us, but rather to offer us light. And that the only judgment that happens is when we see the light and we don't want to step into it. Now, again, what Jesus is getting at here is actually the act of confession, right? We don't have to be perfect to be in the light with Jesus. We just have to be willing to be honest. We have to be willing to look into the dark corners of our own spirits, to open the closets and shine the light in there and see what skeletons are hiding in there. We have to be willing to look under the bed and see what all the things are that we've tried to shove out of reach. And we can do that specifically because Jesus has come to us not with judgment or not with condemnation, but with love. His love actually emboldens us to shine the light on all of those dark corners and to look at all of those places. And Jesus says, really, the only way you can go wrong with me is if you are so committed to your wickedness that you would rather stay in the darkness, hide with the monsters, rather than step into the light. Throughout this series, we've been challenging the assumptions that monsters are out there somewhere, that they're hiding in the dark, waiting to pounce on us. What we've seen is that the people out there that we turn into monsters are actually our neighbors, our friends, the person that we assume the worst in, the person that we will scapegoat. But truly, the monsters that we fear the most are the ones that actually live inside of ourselves. And so I hope throughout this series, the monsters have been a fun way for us to look at our own experiences, to look at our own proclivities, to look at our own impulses and desires, and ask, am I actually trying to be better, or do I just want to feel better about myself? Am I actually trying to let the Holy Spirit do the hard work of spiritual formation to make me into the image of Jesus? Or am I just trying to ignore all of those things so I can continue in my sin, continue harming myself and harming others? I hope that we have seen throughout this series that Jesus emboldens us through his great love to return to him and to face down the monsters that wear our own face, so that we can find life. I look forward to wrapping up our conversations about monsters this weekend in our Beacon Bits. Until then, have a spooky week, and grace and peace be with you.